It was a political earthquake. Against all predictions, denying every poll, Donald Trump carried the night. And there was delirium at his campaign headquarters as the reality of the most stunning victory in US politics sunk home.
We're going to have real change, not Obama change.
So it all happened in slow motion. There were tears among the crowd.
And Donald Trump, it would appear, is going to be the next president here in the United States.
Good night. We will be back. We'll have more to say, and let's bring this home.
The American people have elected their new champion.
This night was not supposed to go like this. We were supposed to all hug each other because we were supposed to be welcoming in the first woman president.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans.
For the first time in my life, I'm ashamed to be American.
Donald Trump has got to go, Donald Trump has got to go, Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
While many among Clinton's supporters have been shocked by the result of the election, Trump fans say they were confident all along and are delighted with the outcome.
Feeling great, man. Victory, victory. We were waiting for this. It was a long time coming, and hopefully he's going to change government, get away from this corrupt government that we've been dealing with.
Did you expect this yesterday?
Yes. If you looked at every election throughout Europe, Brexit, anyone who didn't understand that the media here clearly had no idea what they were talking about, but anyone who's seen the elections throughout Europe and the rest of the world knew that the status quo was not for the population, and Hillary Clinton just was not the right candidate on the other side. She was a terrible candidate.
Russia is ready and wants to restore full-fledged relations with the United States. I repeat, we understand that this will not be an easy path, but we're ready to do our part and do everything to return Russia-US relations to a stable and sustainable track of development.
A number of Russian companies are still trying to cash in on the campaign. A chain of fast food cafes in Moscow is offering special Hillary and Trump wraps on its menus. The cafe owners say they will calculate how many Trump wraps and Hillary wraps were sold and announce the results on Election Day. Souvenir stores are also making a quick ruble by selling traditional Russian matryoshka dolls featuring Trump's likeness. The stores say the Trump dolls are gaining popularity among collectors and tourists.
President Barack Obama has invited President-elect Donald Trump to meet with him at the White House on Thursday. Obama called Trump early Wednesday while he was speaking to his supporters in New York to congratulate him. Trump called him back after he left the stage. Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, says the two had a very nice talk. The Thursday meeting is to address Trump's victory and discuss the presidential transition.
I hear the exit polls about this being sort of disaffected economic protests, and I get that. I think what I'm feeling and what I hear from, friends across the country is that we're worried we're going to be collateral damage in this. That, I'm gay, Donald, and I have kids of color. Donald Trump is committed to appointing justices to the Supreme Court to repeal same-sex marriage, to repeal my rights, to take away rights from women, our reproductive freedom. So, it may be that this is really just about economic protest and trade, but what happens is that you put power in the hands of people who can do this kind of damage. It's scary. I'm scared.
Despite what you might have heard on Election Day, the 43rd president reportedly did not vote for Hillary Clinton. At this point, we're not sure what he did with the presidential field. Conservative radio show host Rush Limbaugh said Tuesday that George W. Bush and his wife Laura Bush reportedly voted for Clinton. Bush's spokesperson said that isn't the case, telling the Texas Tribune in an email that the Bushes didn't vote for Clinton or Donald Trump. New York Times reporter Jonathan Martin followed that up with news that the Bushes actually left the presidential field blank. But the Wall Street Journal reported the spokesman declined to say whether they'd voted third party or written in a name.
The bitter defeat in the presidential race has many supporters of Democrat Hillary Clinton shell-shocked in Maine. Among them is Stephen King. King, the best-selling author, tweeted early Wednesday that he's going offline, saying there will be, quote, no more book recommendations, politics, or amusing dog pictures for the immediate future. I'm shutting down. End quote. Before the election, King criticized Republican Donald Trump, and on Election Day, he described the presidential race as the ugliest election in living memory. Clinton conceded defeat early Wednesday and congratulated Trump. Mainers split their electoral votes. Clinton won the statewide vote, collecting 3 electoral votes, but Trump won in the 2nd Congressional District, collecting 1 electoral vote.
On Saturday, Pope Francis urged world leaders to do more for the refugee crisis and condemned the use of walls to keep refugees out. While Francis didn't mention the upcoming U.S. election or any particular politician or country by name, many are linking his statements to Donald Trump's threats to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexican border. Francis has given his thoughts on Trump in the past.
A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be located, and not building bridges, is not a Christian. This is not in the gospel.
And the Pope certainly didn't shy away from the building walls metaphor during his speech. He spoke for several minutes, warning against physical and social walls that enclose some and exile others. The Pope's speech also comes as countries across Europe battle the world's refugee crisis. Many are using border walls and fences to stem the flow of migrants trying to enter their countries.
あれに送りましょうか。うわっ。ドカッとやっぱいったな。そうだこれうちも場合によっちゃ出る。まだこの辺は大丈夫か。
Well, some really heavy rain in Haiti has triggered severe flooding, particularly in northern Haiti, where nearly a foot of rain fell in just 48 hours. This was over the weekend, and the problem is it keeps on falling in some spots. The flooding has been blamed for at least 10 deaths. Just let me give you an example here. There was a mother and her 3 children that were killed when their home collapsed. So this is really horrific stuff. A lot of neighborhoods still underwater. And keep in mind, this flooding comes just over a month after Hurricane Matthew absolutely devastated parts of the island. These guys just can't catch a break.
The Great Salt Lake is drying up fast. New photos from NASA's Earth Observatory show the body of water has reached its lowest level on record. The lake is a terminal basin, which means it's the last stop for the water flowing from rivers and streams. And for about 150 years, people have been taking more water out of the lake than what's pouring in. The observatory estimates that humans take 40% of water from rivers that's supposed to make its way into the basin. That's caused the shoreline to shrink 11 feet since 1847. But human consumption isn't the only reason for the shrinkage. The water shortage can be traced to the drought along the west coast and rising global temperatures due to climate change. And this isn't great news for Utah's economy. The lake's minerals are a key moneymaker for the state, and the lake drying up means companies don't have as much to extract and sell. The good news is the lake has seen dry cycles before, and reports say those didn't cause any long-term change in the basin.
In 2012, a couple caused an outbreak of meningitis that killed 64 U.S. citizens. Carla Canigliaro and Douglas Canigliaro pleaded guilty for not only this, but also for stealing money from bank accounts so that they would not have to follow financial reporting requirements while under investigation. The meningitis outbreak occurred after the Canigliaro's pharmaceutical company sold contaminated injectable steroids for back pain. Although they knew the steroids were infected, they allowed 778 people to buy them and get sick.
Swedish officials are set to question WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange over allegations of rape and sexual assault. The allegations reportedly surfaced in 2010. Though he denies the claims, Assange fled Sweden. He's been living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2012. Assange is reportedly looking forward to the meeting with Swedish authorities. His lawyer claims they've requested the interview for years, as it will give him a chance to clear his name. The meeting will take place at the Ecuadorian embassy in London on November 14th.
Russia's aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, is reportedly preparing for an attack against terrorist targets in the Aleppo province in Syria. RT's Murat Gazdiev is in the city for us.
The Russian naval battle group, stationed now just off the coast of Syria and led by the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, will begin hitting Islamist targets in the countryside of Aleppo in the coming days, according to a military source. They will be targeting not the city itself, but the countryside west of Aleppo, from where Islamists have now staged 2 unsuccessful attempts to break into the city, from where they have been shelling the city relentlessly and have left hundreds of civilian casualties over the last month. We're also told that they won't be using just airstrikes, jets, but also the Caliber cruise missiles, Russian cruise missiles that have been previously used in Syria to target ISIS and other jihadist groups. There's no specific time frame. We've been told that this will happen in the coming days.
Meanwhile, photos are appearing online allegedly showing Turkish special forces and snipers operating in Aleppo. Here are those pictures with the descriptions below saying they are fighting against the Syrian army, but that cannot be independently verified.
Turkey temporarily pulled the plug on a children's cartoon channel. The country has been cracking down on channels seen as part of separatist activity. The channel aired popular cartoons like SpongeBob, just dubbed into the Kurdish language. After being off air for weeks, Turkey has reversed its decision, but Zark TV wasn't the only victim. It's a part of Turkey's emergency crackdown against terrorism after the coup. Kurds say the crackdown has unfairly targeted their culture and language.
There is no operation or banning against a language or culture because there are many Kurdish channels and they continue broadcasting.
Up until 2 decades ago, the Kurdish language was banned in Turkey. It was eventually unbanned in 1991, and broadcasts were allowed in the early 2000s, but relations haven't really improved. For Newsy, I'm Melissa Prax.
When Akko Abdulrahman came under attack from ISIS militants advancing around the Iraqi city of Kirkuk, he realized he needed protection. After shopping around, the Kurdish Peshmerga fighter settled on a bulletproof BMW and paid $10,000 for the early 1990s model at a car auction. Then, on October 21st, dozens of ISIS militants carried out a coordinated series of attacks. 64 died, 86 ISIS militants were killed, and more than 100 civilians and security personnel were wounded. Many of them were left stranded because of ISIS's militants' indiscriminate firing, while others were trapped by the terror group snipers shooting from rooftops. Abdulrahman knew he had to act. He drove the armored BMW through the city, returning again and again to collect the injured, as ISIS gunmen peppered the vehicle with bullets. Abdulrahman said he used his car to transport more than 70 of the wounded to safety and also ferried the bodies of the dead away from the attack. The courageous war hero said, "In my car, I carried Sunni, Shiite, Kurds, Turkmen, and Christians. I felt like I am truly Iraqi, and this is who everyone should be."
If you're thinking of packing up your belongings and moving to Canada now that the election is over, you're going to face a slight problem. The country's immigration website is down. It crashed Tuesday evening as election results started to roll in. The site was still down Wednesday morning. Lots of Americans said they would move to Canada if Donald Trump became president. Google searches for how to move to Canada first spiked after the Super Tuesday primaries in March. There was even a website launch that encouraged Americans to move to Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia. And now Trump has claimed victory. He won 276 electoral votes, making him president-elect. His opponent, Hillary Clinton, won 218 electoral votes. It appears this wanting to move out of the country thing happens quite a bit, though, and not just in America. People searched how to immigrate and move to Ireland on Google after the UK voted to leave the European Union in June, and a post office in Northern Ireland's capital actually ran out of passport applications several days later. As of early Wednesday morning, the Canadian government had not yet acknowledged its immigration site was down.
There's a saying, isn't it, that good fences do make good neighbours, but in one district of Munich, a newly built wall is having the opposite effect. People in a well-off residential area have demanded authorities construct said wall to separate them from a new centre that's soon to open up to host 160 young refugees. Residents, though, fear it could devalue their home. They're also concerned about noise too. There's the wall. It's built in such a way it can't be used for ball games, incidentally. It is proving controversial. Let's find out why.
It may have been a global shock, but it was Mexico's peso which took the full force of the blow from Trump's election win. It tumbled 13% against the dollar before expectations of intervention helped it recover by around a third. But it wasn't to be.
These price movements have happened in a wide spectrum of currencies, assets and countries, starting in the US itself. The election result doesn't mean an immediate impact on trade agreements, finance flows or the movement of people between the two countries.
Trump's threatened to rip up a free trade agreement with Mexico and tax money sent home by migrants to pay for building a wall along the southern US border. As a result, the peso's been battered by the election campaign.
New York police are investigating the death of a member of staff at the Russian consulate after his body was found outside with a head injury at around 7 in the morning. The 63-year-old was found unconscious and died while receiving treatment. The cause of death is unknown and a post-mortem will be carried out, but violence has been ruled out for the moment.
Authorities in New Delhi have begun revoking licences of older diesel vehicles in a desperate bid to combat days of extreme pollution. The choking smog, which is several times over the safety limit, has left the Indian capital shrouded in a heavy haze, forcing officials to shut the city's schools.
We've polluted ourselves to an extent where the air is completely toxic. It's beyond measurable limits. It's crossed all limits of human imagination, of the imagination of our machines that were supposed to really calculate how polluted our air is.
The pollution is the worst to hit New Delhi in 20 years and has got so bad that machines designed to register the air quality are no longer able to take any measurements. The city's health minister said all measures are being taken to curb this pollution. For the first time, Delhi's roads are being washed. Water is being sprinkled on the roads to prevent dust from rising. A combination of car emissions, fireworks from the Hindu festival of Diwali, dust from building sites and the burning of farm residue in surrounding states have all combined to engulf the Indian capital.
Occasionally a moment in history throws everything up in the air. In European capitals, power brokers are trying to work out exactly who Trump is, whether he knows who they are, and what his new power will mean to them.
The dawn is breaking on an independent, united kingdom.
This we know already, that the British vote to leave the European Union, to take our country back, as the Brexit supporters put it, was echoed loudly by Trump, who said his victory would be Brexit plus. And it follows that those European politicians who also want to bring down the establishment in the EU have been delighted by his win and will hope for his support in the coming months and years. Congratulations to the new American President Donald Trump and to the American people who are free, tweeted Marine Le Pen of the French National Front. Heartfelt congratulations, Mr. Trump, an historic election victory, said the far-right anti-immigrant Alternative for Germany. And from the anti-Muslim Dutch Freedom Party leader Geert Wilders, a tweet needing no translation. The Trump victory will put wind in all their sails ahead of several European elections in the coming months. Faced with this, Jean-Claude Juncker, the head of the European Commission, called for an urgent meeting with Trump to understand his agenda. And it's hardly surprising, fault lines like the Baltic states, which the EU wants to defend against potential Russian aggression, or the situation inside divided Ukraine, are suddenly open to question, as Trump appears close to the Russian President Putin and has questioned his commitment to the core values of NATO. Consequently, European establishment figures have been lining up to ask for some clarity as to what the new position is between Europe and its supposed oldest friend over the Atlantic.
A strong NATO is good for the United States, and it is good for Europe.
J'engagerai sans tarder.
I will engage without delay in a discussion with the new American administration, which takes office on the 20th of January. But I will do that with watchfulness and frankness, because certain positions taken by Donald Trump during the American campaign must be confronted in light of the values and interests that we share with the United States.
The result is different than most people in Germany would have wanted, but of course we have to respect it.
One of the biggest problems for the EU's leadership is the sense that the only bit of Europe Trump cares about is his golf course in Scotland. For decades, the assumption of joint thinking between the EU and US has been a given. Not, it appears, anymore.